All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jason Flame, host of the Master Motivation Podcast, and thank you for being patient. We had a little technical difficulty, but we got it figured out. We're in business and we are ready to go. Let me introduce our special guest for today. Our guest is Mr. Cecil Peoples, who has over 55 years of martial arts training. He was awarded his first degree black belt in 1970. Since then, Master Peoples' name has become one of the most recognized and respected names in the sports of kickboxing and karate. Cecil Peoples holds a 10th degree black belt in Kenpo Karate and is a master instructor who owned and operated his own martial arts school for over 22 years. Cecil Peoples is a member of the Karate Hall of Fame and has more than 25 world champion students the world over. In July of 2003, Master Peoples was inducted into the Martial Arts History Museum's Martial Arts Hall of Fame. There's a lot more to talk about, but that's just to get started. So, Sensei Peoples, thank you so much for being on the show, and thank you for being patient, letting me work you through getting on the show today.
The pleasure is all mine. I'm honored.
Well,
You
excellent.
hear me?
I can. Yeah,
Did
we
you
have
hear me?
I did hear you. We have a little bit of a delay. But that's okay. Let's jump right in. I'm going to let you do most of the talking. I'm sure that you can hear me. Can you tell us how you got involved in martial arts in the beginning, how you got started?
Yeah. I was born and raised in Alabama, and I moved out to California in 1966. I played baseball. I was in the minor league for Pittsburgh Pirates, and it wasn't going well in the South uh, at that time. So the gentleman told me to come to California, and they had a team out here that I could play with, and I did. But when I got here, it was already July, and the season was over early for minor leagues. So when the season was over, I told a friend of mine I wanted to do judo, and he was like, "What is judo?" And I said, flipping people and stuff like that. And he said, "No, why don't you do karate?" And I was like, "Okay, what's karate?" He said, "The stuff Bruce Lee does. That's what I want to do. I want to be like Bruce Lee." And they said, "Yeah, but he does kung fu." I said, "Okay, I'll do kung fu." So I went to a kung fu school, and I looked in there, standing outside. I looked in it, and I was like, "I don't know. I don't think that's for me." So my friend told me to go to North Hollywood on Laurel Canyon Boulevard, and it's across the street from May Company. And that's all he knew. Laurel Canyon, across the street from the May Company. So my dad and I were going to go look for this place. And after he got out of the shower, it was a talk show on, and the lady said, "Next up, we're going to have a karate demonstration." So I called my dad and I said, "Come here, there's going to be a karate demonstration." So this guy did the karate demonstration, and I was like, "That's what I want to do. That's what I want to do." So the lady said, "Where's your studio?" And he says, "In North Hollywood on Laurel Canyon, across the street from the May Company." And I said, "That's it." And I went there. And when I was walking in the front door, he was coming in the back door from doing that demonstration. And he came over to me with his real professional salesmanship. He walked over, looked at me, and goes, "What you want?" I said, "I want to do karate." And he said, "Come back Friday." So I came back Friday, and I never left until I went to Vietnam.
Wow. Well, that's a great
That's
story. Something that I haven't heard. And for those of you that are watching live, or maybe you watch this later on the playback, you'll notice that there is a little bit of delay on our internet connection. And so things might seem a little bit off. But again, I'm going to let Sensei do most of the talking as I continue to ask questions. But you talked about, playing baseball in the minor leagues. That's something that probably a
yeah.
lot of people in the martial arts industry don't really know about you. Did you play baseball as a young child all the way up? When did you start playing baseball?
I started playing baseball. Well, hitting the stick, hitting the ball out in the street and all that. We did that all along. But when I got about 14 or 15, we had a team. Now, let me tell you, on basketball and track and field, our little school. Remember, I was in Alabama, so it's a little teeny tiny school. I think the entire student body was 125 people from the first grade through 12th grade. That's how tiny it was. So, but track and field, everything, we lost everything. We lost a basketball game 125-25. But when it came to baseball, nobody beat us. And, thought I was going to be Willie Mays. I had my number 24. I did the basket catch Willie Mays did, and this and that. And when I was a junior in high school, I got a letter one day. I didn't know my friends had written the letter. And they get a letter and it said Pittsburgh Pirates. And I get to open the letter and it was saying, we want you to come to a tryout in this city called Guin and be there at 12 noon and we're going to try you out. So my friend, it was three of us that went. And when we got there about 11:30, the thing was over. And we asked the guy, hey, what's going on? You told us to be here at 12:30, 12 o'clock, and we're here. And he said, well, it was a mix up. And he said, well, maybe we can start a little game going and then you can play with the guys. But the white players wouldn't play with us. The parents wouldn't let them. So he said, okay, look, why don't I'll just hit you some balls and stuff like that. And when you're going for a tryout, you have to play two positions. I played center field and first base. And my other guys played their two positions. So he was throwing balls at us. We would hit him, and then he would knock out balls in the center for me to get, and then throw it in. And so that, it was. I guess they were impressed because he just told us, okay, we'll can you put some cream. Oh, he said, just hang loose. Well, he didn't say hang loose, but he said, we'll get back in touch with you. So I said, okay. So we didn't hear from him again. And then like in May, at the beginning of May, I went to the post office one day. Remember, we're in Alabama now. You have to go to the post office to get your mail. There ain't no mailman coming. So I got my mail one day, and when I walked in, the lady in the mailbox in the post office was saying, hey, congratulations. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she said, you got the letter from the Pittsburgh Pirates again. And so I said, really? She handed me the letter, and the same three guys got it. So they said, come to Guin on this day and be here at 8 o'clock. We were there at 6 o'clock in the morning this time. We weren't going to be late. So we got there, and the white kids still wouldn't play with us. So, but he had some other people there. So we started a game, and we played. I played center field. My other buddy played shortstop, and the other guy was pitching, and he did second base. So I had a guy. The guy hit me a ball. I was doing the Willie Mays basket catch thing. And then one guy hit a line drive out. I picked the ball up. He was on second, rounded third. He was going to go home. I gunned him down. I gunned him down right at home plate, all the way from center field on the fly. So anyway, everybody was pressed. Even the white people were clapping for us this time. I got a single, a double, a triple. I stole second. I stole third. It was good. It was real good, And so my mother was there. She had came from California. And she said, you need to either sign him or we got to take him back to California. And the guy said, well, California would be great because, it ain't that thing like we have here in Alabama. So he said, go to California. You'll hear from this guy. And I did. When I got to California, I heard from the guy. But the season was almost over. So he asked me to play with this team called the Tacoma Rednecks. So I did. And then I was nervous as hell, coming straight out of Alabama with that Southern drawl. And they were laughing at me and stuff, And so I played. Season was over. Uh, that's when I asked my friend, I want to do judo.
Hmm.
So I told you the story. I started doing karate, and I was good at it right away. And when I first got there, I saw this kid, and he was doing jumping in the air, turning and kicking the bag in the air. And I asked my instructor, who is that guy, and how could he do that stuff he's doing? And remember, I'm a white belt. So he said, what guy? And I said, that guy over there, the short guy. He go, oh, that's Benny Urquidez. And I said, really? Who is Benny Urquidez? Remember, I'm only there for about a month. So he told Benny to do the kick again. And I did it. He did it. And it was what it was a jump spinning back kick, you know. And I wanted to learn that. And so since Benny, he's sensei now. He taught me how to do that, and we became very good friends then. But for some reason, Sensei Bill, my instructor, he wouldn't look at me. He wouldn't talk to me, and I would go up and ask him stuff. Remember, I'm from Alabama now, so when I look at him, I put my head down like this, and he said, "Walk away." He walked away from me, and this went on for like 2 weeks. And I was like, God, what is he? He hate me because I'm black? Why does he won't talk to me? Finally, one of the ladies in the class, she said, hey, Cecil, if you want him to talk to you, you have to look him in his eyes and talk to him like you're not intimidated. I said, oh, okay. So I walked up to him and I looked dead in his eyes and I go, Sensei, how do you do this? How do you do that? And he said, oh, come over here. I'll show you. And I was like, oh, that's the trick out here in California, huh? I can look at people in the eyes now. So
Right.
we did, and that was it.
Well, this is great history that we're
Uh,
talking about here, guys. And those of you that are watching it live or may watch this on the replay, again, there is a little bit of lag and a little bit of delay in between our questions and responses, but hopefully everybody's following along. And I want to quickly shout out to Dana Abbott, who's watching. He says, howdy from Arizona. Good afternoon to you. And we got someone on Facebook watching here. Good morning to you as well. And by the way, if you're watching live and you have any questions that you want me to ask Sensei Cecil, please let me know. I have a bunch of questions that I want to ask, but I want to hear your questions as well. And we got Roseanne Azatat watching. She's excited to hear more stories, I think. But again, let me know if you have any specific stories or questions you want to hear. Coming over from
she's heard
Alabama to California.
Roseanne is one of my black belts. She's heard the stories many times.
Well, I know that
Roseanne
everybody.
Azatec,
Yep, she says she knows them all. She loves hearing them. Everybody does. I think as martial artists, it's one of our favorite things is story time. I can remember training with my instructor Dennis Ichikawa, and every Wednesday night when we did forms, it was like we didn't really look forward to the forms as much as we listened to him tell the stories about who he trained with and who he started with and all that good stuff. And you brought up two big names, Bill Rosaki and Benny Urquidez, two of the greats in the martial arts, and these are the people that you got to train with and you got to start with. But before we go back to the martial arts, you talk about growing up in Alabama and coming over to California, things were different. What was your childhood like growing up in Alabama? I'm assuming this is 50s, 60s era. Is that correct?
yes, it was the 50s, 60s. You know, uh, it wasn't as bad as some states and some cities and some counties in Alabama, but it was bad. When we were in school, in our little school, we had 125 people, first through the 12th. We wouldn't get books until the white school in Carbon Hill was finished with the books. So we were always a year behind in getting the books. That's just the way it was at that time. And I can tell you one Christmas night, we have the thing, a party at the cafe. You've seen them on movies, where the people are dancing and smoking and shooting pool in these little tiny black cafes. So my friend and I had my girlfriend, and this other guy had his girlfriend, and we went down to this place called the Frosty Freeze. And so I came to the window and I said, "Can I have whatever it was I ordered, a hot dog or something?" And this guy tapped me on the shoulder, and I turned and I said, "Yes." And he goes, "What y'all doing here?" And I said, "None of your business." He goes, "Y'all niggas, you have to go to the back door." And I said, "What?" And he goes, "Y'all niggas, you got to go to the back door." And I said, "Make me go to the back door." And he said, "I won't, but these good old boys will." And he waved his hand like this. He waved his hand. And all these guys started coming out of the car. I mean, just it looked like 100 of them, even though it wasn't. They were just coming out the car and coming at us. And so we backed up. I bent down to pick up a big half a brick. And the guy said, "We gonna kill y'all niggas. We gonna kill you." And my friend and I, we started backing up, and they took off running. And I had a half a brick in my hand, and I faked it like I was going to throw it at him. And he ducked. And when he raised his head up, I threw the brick and hit him in the head. And we took off running, and they're right behind us. Some little kids were coming, and they saw this whole thing, so they went to the cafe and they said, "Hey, Cecil is getting jumped out there." So there, all the people start running out of the cafe, and we it was almost like a story. We all met in the 50-yard line on our football field, and it was fights, punching, kicking. Everybody started running. The white kids left because it was too many of us. They took off and started running. But the guy that started the whole thing, he fell. And when he fell, I started punching him. And finally, they pulled me off the guy, and we took off. But when they pulled me off the guy, they go, "Cecil, let him alone." So the next day, we were playing basketball, and the police came, and he said, "Y'all know Cecil?" And he looking at me, and I said, "No, never heard of that guy." And they go, "Who knows Cecil?" Nobody said a word. So he took off. And then about 15 minutes, they came back and they go, "Come here, boy. Your name is Cecil. Get in this car." So I get in the car, and they took me to the police station. And he said, "Y'all tell me the story. What happened?" So I told him the story, and he said, "Okay, I'm gonna come talk to you later." But they never did. That was the end of it. The guy was beat to hell in there. You could see it busted all up, and that was the end of it. I never heard from the police again, and that was it.
And you're known in the tournament circuit in the martial arts world as someone that's very tough, and you're a tough fighter, scrappy. Do you think that your upbringing and these experiences in your life led you to be the kind of fighter that you were?
Hey, look, in Alabama, you had to fight. You had to fight. I mean, your friends, somebody else's friends. You go to town to play a basketball game. There's a big fight broke out. If you couldn't fight, you had no business around there. I mean, we were fighting, punching, kicking, and as we got older, then we started carrying knives, switchblades, and my grandmother found a switchblade. I lived with my grandmother. I was born and raised in my grandmother's house. Um, so I stayed with her my entire life. And um, she found a switchblade. And at that time in Alabama, you can whip your kids. We could get whippings. And she started hitting me with the belt. "Why are you carrying this knife?" And whipping me. And I'm crying, act like I'm crying. And she said, "Don't you do that again?" And I was like, okay. Then when I came to California, I had a knife again, and things were bad in Pacoima at that time. You understand Pacoima, and
Mm-hmm.
I said, I'm either carry a gun or really learn how to fight. So my friend said, uh, man, your mother find out, he was next door to us. He said, your mother find out you have a gun, man, it's going to be bad for you. So that's when I said, well, I need to learn how to fight. And that's when he brought up karate.
Mm-hmm.
And so that started that. But being back in Alabama in those days, it wasn't bad in my hometown, but it was bad in other. I'll give you an example. If some black guy raped and killed a white girl, let's say in West Virginia, that thing came all the way down to Alabama, where you know they took it out on us. You know, you walking, you get shot at, or you get stuff thrown at a car at you. But it still wasn't as bad as some cities. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so you just dealt with it at that time. You dealt with it. You know,
Right.
not great. You know, you dealt with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me give a shout out to a couple more people. We got Mr. Ron Oatman saying hello and saying hi to you. Emilio Ramon, thank you for joining us and checking in. And Mr. Robert Edelman is checking in and saying hi to you, Mr. People. So a lot of people watching in. There are a lot of hype coming up when I posted that I'd be interviewing today. And I know a lot of the martial artists want to hear more of these martial arts stories. But what I really love to hear is I love to learn a little bit more about the person. I've loved hearing about your time in baseball, what it was like growing up in Alabama. So let's get back to the martial arts. You earned some respect from your instructor just simply by looking him in the eyes when you were talking, right? And what
Yeah.
was your training with Biwasaki like? This was back late 60s, right? Because you earned your black belt in 1970. Is that right?
Yeah. Let me tell you this right quick uh, before you do that. I I picked cotton in Alabama every year of my life until my senior, and I'm telling my students that they don't believe it. They won't believe. They don't believe anything I say about Alabama. I said I picked cotton all my life until I was a senior in high school. And the senior, uh, we picked cotton, and I wouldn't do it as a senior. I was just too cool then. I'm too cool to go back out there in the cotton field. But if you could pick 100 pounds of cotton, you got $3.
Hmm.
You got $3 for 100 pounds, and most of us was pretty good at it. The older men would get 150 because they had the system; they know how to do it. So I picked cotton, except for my senior year, and then I learned that I wasn't all that cool when I got to California. So anyway, go back, ask my question again.
Yeah, we were just talking, and thanks for sharing that. Sharing that information with us because again, a lot of people may not know some of this history of you growing up. Everybody talks about the martial arts and your skills as a tournament fighter,
Mhm.
as an instructor, as a master instructor. But I was asking, training with Bill Rasaki in the early years, you earned your black belt, I believe it was 1970. So you were training in the late 60s, is that right? What was martial arts training once you got started?
You know, I was training, and I started going to karate tournaments in '67, and I went to a tournament and uh, out by the airport, and it was my first tournament, and I think I won third place or something. I had no idea what I was doing, but I did see this guy walking around with a black belt in the back of his black belt. He's carrying it in behind him. And I looked at my instructor and I was like, isn't that disrespectful? What is that guy? Why is that guy doing that? He goes, you know who that is? And I said, no. He said, that's Steve Sanders. Okay, who is Steve Sanders? And he said, this guy's from it wasn't the Black Karate Federation then, but he was training with Mr. Parker, and he became really good. And I watched him fight, and he went through everybody he fought that night, and that just inspired me to hell to become a really good fighter. Years later, I went to train with him when he had started the BKF. I'm sorry, what you what else did you say?
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Uh,
So training with your instructor in the early years, what was training like? Your first lesson was just learning how to look someone in the eyes, but Well, I mean, training in the 60s and 70s is a whole lot different than us training now. What are some of your earliest memories of starting your very first classes?
I felt out of sorts because I was, I'm still just getting here from Alabama, but people went out of their way to be friendly to me, and I remember one of the black belts came up to me, and I had just passed my purple belt test. That was the next belt after white belt then, and I was like, man, I like this. I like it, and I want to be a good black belt. And he looked at me and he said, "You're better than most of them now." And
Hmm.
tears start rolling down my eyes, man. It was such a thing, and I said, God, I'm really going to work hard. So Sensei Benny left because his oldest brother Arnold had opened the school, but he would come back down sometime and teach. So I was always no ego, man. I was always in the front row so I could get Sensei Benny's advice. I mean, his teaching and stuff. So I kept training and training and training, I was really gung ho at this, man, that I had found my calling, and I wanted to be a martial artist. I want to be like Sensei. I want to be like Sensei Benny. And I wanted to be like Bruce Lee, like Chuck Norris, and I'm training hard. And we go to other people's school and we work out with them. And, I just kept trying and trying. And then the thing happened that I didn't want to happen. I got a draft notice that I was going in the Army. So I went to San Fernando. I joined the Navy. And when I got home from joining the Navy, my mother said, "You have a letter." And I opened up the letter, and it said, "You were drafted. You have to go to the Army on, I think, March 26th or something like that. You had to go to the Army." But I called my recruiter and I said, "Yeah, I got a draft." And he said, "When is it?" I said, "March 26th. Don't worry, you'll be in the Navy." So bam, I took off, went to the Navy, because remember, I went to the Navy because I didn't want to go to Vietnam. So I
Hmm.
go to the Navy, we do the 9 weeks of training. I got assigned to a ship that was anchored in Pearl Harbor. And so I was like, "Oh God, yeah, good. Hawaii, oh yeah." And then I go on my ship. I don't have to go to Vietnam. I got on the ship. 2 weeks later, off to Vietnam.
Hmm.
I want to go to Vietnam. Well, too late. And then we went to um, uh, Philippines, and my ship was a tanker. So we got fuel out to sea, out to Vietnam, dropping off food. You know, it was it was okay. I enjoyed the Navy, but nothing wanted to keep me away from karate. You know, and when my time was up in the Navy, I went back to karate, and I was only there a few weeks. And since they said we having black belt testing in like 2 weeks, so you're gonna have to wait till the next one. I said, no, I can do it. I can do it. I worked my butt off. I went to Sensei Benny. He worked with me. Even his brother Arnold Ukides, they worked with me. And when testing time came, I was all over that, man. I got the highest score in the testing, and that was it. I knew what I wanted to do the rest of my life was martial arts, no doubt about it.
That's awesome. Now, real quick, how many total years did you serve in the Navy? How many times were you? How long were you in the service?
You're in for 4 years, but after my second year, going into my third year, I guess the war in Vietnam was ain't coming down. Remember, the people were you too young to remember, but everybody was protesting in the White House about that stupid ass war, and so the Navy had all these ships that were left over from World War I, World War II, the Korean War. So they started decommissioning all these ships, and so they had to get rid of all these ships. So then, now what are you going to do with all the sailors? That's what are you going to do with them? So I guess Congress or somebody said, well, start letting them out of the service. So they came to
Hmm.
me and said, "You want to stay? You want to go home? You know." And I said, no, I want to go home. And I was, when you're going to be short time, you become the captain's driver. And the captain was trying to talk me in the stand. And I said, no, sir, I want to go to college and I'm going to be a college professor. I didn't want to do that. I just want to get back home to karate. So he said,
Hmm.
oh, you going to college? I said, yes, sir. I already applied and this thing and that thing, and so he said, okay, well, good luck with that. He said, okay. And they said, you can take off. And I left, went to San Francisco. I got discharged, came back, first day, right back to karate. And they had a tournament that weekend. I got there and I went in Florida and it looked like hell. I was just awful there. And that was in December, late December. And then, no, it was early January. And, but then I fought in another tournament, California Karate Championship. And uh, I took first place. And the North is what is it? The two brothers up there had a big tournament. It's as big as Mr. Parker's tournament. And
Flores
I took
Brothers.
first place. Yeah. No, no, this is in San Francisco.
Oh, 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 okay.
Yeah, it was in San Francisco. It was a big tournament. Northern California Karate Championship or something. Anyway, I took first
Hmm.
place,
Yeah.
and I got to tell you a quick story. You know, when I came home from the Navy, I wanted to go visit my grandmother. So I had to go downtown to buy some shoes. All I had was Navy shoes. And when I got there, this black guy was talking to these three white people, and he said, man, don't you go down to the jungle. Don't you go down there to the jungle. And he looked at me and he said, hey, boy, you know, you know what a jungle is? And I said, of course, I know what a jungle is. And he said, tell them not to go down to the jungle. And I said, don't go down to the jungle. All right. And then I was selling he sold me some shoes and I left. And I was like, that guy, because he kept saying, I'm a black belt in karate and I don't go to the jungle. He said that 4 or 5 times. I'm a black belt in karate and I don't go to the jungle. And I was like, yeah, right. He's a black belt, because at that time you're supposed to be humble. You don't
Hmm.
broadcast that you're a black belt. So he I got the shoes, I left in March, I think it was. I came back. I was at the San Francisco tournament and I'm sitting on the floor, stretching out. And this guy came by and I said, hey, I know you. And he said, you know me? I said, don't you remember I came in the shoe store and you told me to tell this guy not to go to the jungle? And I said, he goes, yeah, I remember that. I go, and I said, hi, I'm Cecil. And he said, hi, I'm Jim Kelly.
Oh, oh, oh.
That's how I met Jim Kelly selling
Wow.
shoes.
Wow.
Anyway, I won first place at the tournament in Brown Belt, and he lost his first fight. That's how I
Wow.
met Jim Kelly.
Well, for those of you watching, if you're not a martial arts fan, you may not know that name, but Jim Kelly definitely a staple of a lot of martial arts movies in the 70s and tournament fighter as well throughout his career. Correct?
Yes, and then he got the part in Enter the Dragon.
Right.
You know, so that's. But it was. I became very good friends with him. He was a very good guy, very nice guy to me. You know, and I'll tell you, one day I was down in L.A. in Crenshaw, right by Crenshaw High School, and I saw Jim Kelly opening the front door and going into his school. I made a U-turn and came back, and I said, "Hey, Jim, man," and we hugged, and I said, "I heard you did a movie with Bruce Lee," and he goes, "Yeah, I did." So we went inside, and I said, "Man, how good is Bruce Lee? You should have seen this look on his face." He was going, "Cecil." He goes, "Cecil, this guy is so good. His punches are harder than most people kicks." And he was just in awe of Bruce Lee, like everybody was at that time. But a few weeks later, Bruce Lee died, and then he became on TV and started talking about Bruce Lee, and the whole story changed. You know, and I was just disappointed that he was talking about Bruce Lee the way he did, because I know how he talked about Bruce Lee when I was there. So anyway,
Hmm.
it was a whole
Hmm.
story about that.
Well, here
So
let's say hi real quick because I know Mr. Cox is in Georgia. He just popped in to say hi, sending his love to you. Hope he's still on, and just if you want to say hi to him real quick, Mr. Cox is on here.
hey, Mr. Cox, how you doing? You say he's in Georgia?
He's in Georgia. He's at Puller
You
Karate at Carson School.
tell him he better get the heck out of there. Get back here to California. No, I'm just kidding. Hey, he's a good guy, man. Tell him I said hello and lots of love for him.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, let's jump back in. And before I forget, it needs to be said. Thank you for your service in the Navy. Thank you for getting out there and doing it. I myself, many people ask me. I have never ever served and never claimed to do, but I have a lot of respect for those that put in their time and serve our great country. So thank you for that, and anybody watching, thanking you as well. So you come back from the service, go right back to karate. Now, how long had you been training in karate before you left, and then how much longer until you earned your black belt, and then what happened next?
Okay, I was when I started. It was '67, March of '67, and I left in early '68 and went to the service. But when I left, I was already brown belt, along with the Schumann brothers. Uh, we were all brown belts then. And then I went to Vietnam. I stayed there. I came back. It was in, I think, late December of 1970, I think. And I started, as soon as I got back, I started karate again and
Mm-hmm.
started fighting in tournaments. And uh, one time they were having a tournament at Burbank High School, kind of a Shotokan tournament. And I was still brown belt, but my instructor told me I could fight as a black belt if I wanted to. So I fought. That was like really good. I did. I did really well. I got beat the first guy, and then I beat the second guy. Guess who the third guy was? Benny Urquidez.
Of course.
Yeah. So I he beat me 2-1 because at that time you could only get 2 points. So he got the second point, and I don't think he was going after me very hard, But anyway, I lost to Benny Urquidez, and that's not a a bad thing. So that was it. I was on
And
to
then
fighting then.
so you earned your black belt in 1970. A
Yes.
lot of people talk about the length of time because I'm just kind of doing the math. It's roughly three years. But the difference was, and people don't realize that Chuck Norris earned his black belt in just about a year. But the intensity of training, I know, was a lot different. And when I say intensity, the number of days. You look at martial arts students now, and they train 1-2 days a week. Some of them train, a little bit more, but I'm guessing that you put in a lot of time, several days a week to make it in that time frame. Is that correct?
You're very correct. The whole time I trained with my instructor until I opened my school, I missed one day, and I was sick that day. But other than that, I never missed a day. I mean, that 1 and 2 days stuff. I guess sometimes schools now, you can sign up for come in 2 days, or you can take 4 days or something. It wasn't like that then. So
Mm-hmm.
I was there every day. I didn't miss a day. Like I told you, I missed one day, and that was because I was sick. Other than that, I was all over it. No such thing as missing class and sparring. I'm all over it. We went to other people's schools to start sparring, and I wanted this. I
Mm-hmm.
forgot about baseball. I wanted to be like Bruce Lee, and all this stuff, and I just worked at it, worked at it, worked at it, worked at it. And in 1975, one of my instructor black belts had a school in Van Nuys on Sherman Way, and he called me and asked me he wanted to close the school. He asked me did I want it, and I was like, hell yeah, you know. And I talked to my instructor that Michael is selling his school, and I want to do it. And he said okay. And I went and got to school. I opened this school in July 1st, 1960, 1975. It was when I got
Hmm.
it, 1975. And
And
uh,
and this is still early. This is still early, in the martial arts because there are very few schools at that time. I know that my instructor Dennis Ichikawa opened his school about 1974, so it's right around that same time. There's a
yeah.
few schools, and then over the next decade is where things just really exploded. I mean, there were just a lot of martial arts schools opened up in the San Fernando Valley, and then those schools had students that opened up throughout Ventura County, which
Mhm.
happened to be where I came from. But there was at one point there was a lot of competition, if you will, within the schools as far as traveling fight classes and training amongst each other, that you don't see as much. I don't think that you see as much now. There are a lot of students that would go from school to school to the different fight classes. Can you talk about some of those experiences and some of those stories?
Yes, that happened. When I had my school, even when I was with my instructor, we used to go to people's school. Like when Fairboards opened his school, when Fairboards had his school going, we would go over to Fairboards school every Wednesday night, and my students would fight his students,
Hmm.
and then we take a break and do katas and stuff like that. Then we go back to fighting again. Uh, I went to uh, Chuck Norris's school. I went to Mr. Ichikawa's school when he had it. We went to Bernie Krasno when he had the school down there. I never did that but once. But, you know, Tom Bloom, when Tom opened his school, we would go. And Bill Parent, Bill Parent, we
Hmm.
would go to his school. He would come to our school. And we would go, people that we knew well. And that we even went to the BKF. But it was just a few of us. The Schumann brothers would go, and anywhere where you can get some experience and get some knowledge, we were there. And people would come to my school. We had little tournament things in there, and everybody would come, and it was good then. I don't think that's happening now, but it was good then. You know.
Yeah. It's a little different now. I mean, there's still the pockets of schools that kind of stick together, but I distinctly remember that was something in my upbringing that was pretty much a staple in our training was the traveling fight classes where we would go from school to school, and there was just this brotherhood and camaraderie. You go to the tournaments and
Mhm.
compete against each other, but the training, everybody was helping everybody raise their game. I don't know. You probably don't remember this, have no idea because it was a long time ago and I was really young. But one of my very first tournaments ever was your tournament with Bill Parent. I used to go to your tournament every single year for I don't know 1980, 86, 87, 88. Those years I would be going to that tournament a lot, and I just remember when I first met you. I was just so there was such an aura about you, and your reputation follows you because you were known as just this amazing tournament fighter, and we really haven't talked about those stories yet. So talk a little bit more about the people that you competed with and competed against back in the day.
uh, Almost everybody. I competed against almost everybody Chuck Norris had. Bob Burbage,
Hmm.
what a great fighter he was. What a great fighter he was. People from the Jet Center, uh, from Mr. Ichikawa's school, Tom Bloom places, Tom Bloom school, anywhere that you can get to go somewhere to work out, everybody was into it. Uh, Sometime I would go to Sonny Barnes school and work out over there in Pacoima that he had, and I go out to uh, Johnny Gyros, but until he was teaching with Tom, then he had his own school. We would go work out with Johnny Gyro.
Hmm.
Uh, Anywhere that you can go to get some experience, you were there. and we all went. We all had a good time sparring. Uh, Things started to change a little bit, you know. Um, I stopped going to Bernie's school, what they call Pops. I stopped going to his school because he was a different kind of guy, you know, than Bill Parent and Mr. Ichikawa and uh, everybody that had a school out in Thousand Oaks and other places. You know, it was really good. We worked. I mean, we would just beat the heck out of each other, and then hug, and then we go get a bite to eat and have coffee or something like that. It was really, really good. But then things started to change. You know, I guess you start playing. They start getting money in tournaments, and people didn't want to spar with you anymore because you know they were going to make lose that whole $200. You know, so
Mhm.
uh, uh, I kind of stopped going to other people's school. Only I knew Farrah Boris. We still went to his school. We still went to Mr. Parent's school, Bill Parent. You know, um, we went to other people's school that was really known well. But it
Mhm.
wasn't like it was before. You could go to LA, you could go to East LA, you know, you could work out with anybody and everybody, David Torres and all the people that he had, you know, all the schools that he had. It was really fun.
Mhm.
But at some point, people started taking it too serious, you know, because you start fighting each other in tournaments, and then some people had the feeling that you were stealing their techniques. So when you came met each other, they knew it. Yeah, it did. It stopped being a good thing. It stopped being fun, you know. So fortunately, kickboxing came along, and then you didn't have to worry about that.
Mhm. Mhm. Hey, Roseanne shared a story. She said that she remembers John Hackelman used to bring
Oh.
some people from his school and the guys from the pit. And of course, I'm actually wearing a pit shirt today, just out of luck there. But yeah, good old John, right?
Yeah, let me tell you, uh, John. I don't know if you know, but John is a registered nurse.
Mhm.
He's a registered respiratory therapist, and he's a licensed prison guard. You may not think, but John is so intelligent you wouldn't believe it. He's a redneck too, but that's okay. I loved him anyway. You know, I
John
saw it take place. But
John
anyway,
John Hackelman's one of my favorite guys. Love that guy.
oh my God. You know, when he came to my school, you know, he was going to nursing school in LA. And so he was down here and he needed someplace to work out. He came to my school. And I tell you, I thought I knew how to box, you know, because when kickboxing started, everybody was running everywhere trying to learn how to throw a jab and a hook and all this stuff. And
Mhm.
so I thought I was doing pretty good at it. You know, I thought hey, I got this jab thing going on. And then John came to my school and he was going, hey, Popolo. That's what he called me. That's what they call black people in Hawaii is
Mhm.
popolos. A popolo is a black seed. It's a black flower. When it grows, it's black when it's growing. When it grows, it becomes white. So he used to tell me, "Hey, Popolo, man, what are you doing? I'm doing this uppercut and this hook." He goes, "No, no, no." So he showed me how to do the hook, and then the worst thing that took me was it seemed like it took me forever to learn how to do a hook. I mean, a good hook. So when
Mhm.
John came, he worked with me on that, worked with me on that, worked with me on that, and then my jab got good, bobbing and weaving, you know, all this stuff. Man, it was fantastic to have John at the school. And then he gonna lie to you if you ask him about it. He gonna lie to you. We used to have after the class or to end the class, we would put on James Brown, Rick James, and all this, and we were dancing. We had to make a group and we would dance, man. And John challenged me. Challenged me. Can you believe that? Mr. Go to LA and win all the dance contests. And then John would say, "You didn't beat me." You know, hey John, you beat him. No, you didn't beat me, John. And we had some great dance classes in there. We make a circle and you point to someone. They had to come in and dance. And Uh, but John, boy, he's such a good instructor. But if it hadn't been for John, I would have never learned how to do a hook properly and a straight jab and all this stuff. And he was a fantastic instructor. And he and I used to go at it, but he always win.
Well,
He could
if
hit
there's
really, really, really hard.
two things that I know that John Hackelman loves, it's the left hook, and he does love to dance. Those are
Yeah,
two
he
things I
does.
know. Two things I know. Well, hey, guys, listen, everybody watching live here, time's flying by, and we're at about 50 minutes here. We got less than 10 minutes left. So if there are any questions that I have not asked or any stories you have not heard, please drop a comment. Let us know. I would love to ask those questions for you. The only other thing, I want to talk about a little bit is, your time as an instructor and a school owner. What were some of your favorite things about owning your school and that period of your life, and what were some of the hardest things?
Well, the hardest thing was I knew nothing about running a school. I just wanted to train and get people to come in and train. At that time, to join my class, it was $30 a month,
Hmm.
and I think it got up as high as $35 a month, you know, and uh, and I had a good amount of students, but I had to go and I just wasn't making enough money to keep the school going. So I went and started driving a school bus for the LA Unified School District, So I would do that during the day and I'd run home and then teach all night. And then I was learning to play the saxophone. So I would stay at the school till like 1 o'clock in the morning, then go back to sleep and get up at 4 o'clock and go to drive the school bus. It was hard. It was really
Hmm.
hard. I just couldn't keep up with it. But what was the rest of it you asked me?
So that was the hard part, right? Was just
Yeah.
the business side of running the school, and then having to do a second job as well. But what were some of your favorite times in running your school, and who were some of the standout students that you produced in your school that went on to great success?
Uh, I guess the best one was Chuck Cordova. He's he lives in Denver now. He has a school in Denver, a very big school in Denver. It's called People's Kenpo Karate Association, the PKKA, and he has a very good school. He has very good students. Like I gravitated to kickboxing. He kind of gravitated to MMA, jujitsu.
Hmm.
Their school has a good jujitsu enrollment kind of thing going on. My son, Skiwi, he opened up his own school. My accountant was one of my black belts. He and Skiwi opened up a school. Um, but none of them was as successful as Chuck Cordova. He, he was he was a policeman for 5 years. And in Denver, you could leave the police department, go to the fire department without losing seniority. So he did that. And then I also have, J Dog, Jason Holmes.
Hmm.
Yeah, he opened up a school in Texas, in Houston, Texas. And I asked him, when did you open up? Why did you open up a school? He said, this guy owned the school. Like if you own your school, he came
Hmm.
in one day and the guy is throwing stuff all over the place. And you would say, hey, Jason said, what's wrong? He goes, I'm sick of this school. I'm sick of karate. I can't make money. I don't have, I can't work. He said, I'm had it. And he said, you want this school? And Jason said, what? And he goes, you want my school? You can have it. So he told J Dog, here, you can have it. I'm going to call the landlord. You can take it over. The guy booked out and J Dog started his school. That's how it started. So uh,
That's how a
I
few
think,
people have opened their schools, right?
yes, I had a few people open schools, but they actually, like Chuck Cordova in Denver, he actually run a school like a business. And, you know, I I just wanted to work out. I just wanted to have people come in and train
Hmm.
like John Hackelman and all these people, Bill Parent, and we just fight and fight and fight. That's what I wanted. But I was horrible at being a business. You've been in your school, I don't know what, 30 years now,
Mm-hmm.
25 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know you do. I've seen you spar and I've seen you work out and I've seen you fight, but you still run that school as a business. I had, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I ended up going Tom Bloom, and the neighborhood that I was in was not good. It was not good. One guy brought a gun to class, and one of the black kids in the class called me and said, "Hey, Sensei, this guy brought a gun. I don't want to call his name, but he brought a gun to class." And I went back there and asked, "You got the gun?" He goes, "No, I don't have no gun. I don't." I said, "Give me the gun." I called his name and I said, "Give me the gun." So he gave me the gun, and this lady came in the class and she goes, "Sensei, there's two guys in the car out front, right in front of the door.
Mm-hmm.
They got a gun on their lap." And I was like, "Oh God, Jesus." So I went outside and I said, "Hey guys, what's going on?" They said, "Oh man, we're gonna get this guy." And I was like, "Hey, look, please don't do that, man, because you shoot in my school, you may be some of your relatives there, friends that you know." And he was going, "Okay, professor." That's what he got. He said, "Okay, professor, but we're gonna get him." And he left and went across the street. I had to get the guy in my wife's van and sneak him under the what a gas pedal and the brakes are, so he can get in the back, hide on the floor, and I had to take him home that way. Eventually, they got him though. So
Wow.
it was a rough neighborhood, man. And Tom Bloom had me come out to his school and teach, and otherwise I would have been hurting. But I met my wife there. She was one of my students, and I met her. We got married. We got two great kids now, and they both graduated college. All my kids graduated college. My son Stevie
Congratulations.
graduated college. My son Brian, my daughter Mia, and that my who Lori? Yeah, Lori. I mean, my daughter Lori. Uh, all my students graduated college, and here I am looking like a knucklehead. Can't spell FIT hit.
Well, you've had a heck of a career as a martial artist. You've had some other opportunities that have come your way, and some other things that you've done within the martial arts industry. So I've just been honored to have you on the show today and just spend this hour with you talking about some of the old times, some of the good times, some of the bad times. But ultimately, martial arts is your passion. It's something that you've done. As I mentioned in your introductory, 55 years. I don't know very many people that have stuck with anything 5 years, let alone 55 years. So there's a lot of people that respect you in the martial arts community, and I know that your legacy follows you. So thanks for the time today, and thanks for sharing. Anything else you want to add before we go?
Hey, thank you very much. I am very honored that you allowed me to come on your show. I've heard about it. I've seen it several times, and I'm impressed. And I thank you very much. And maybe sometime when you're having black belt testing or black belt promotions, I'd like to come by and be on the panel. You know.
Well, I would love that. As a matter of fact, I will be attempting my eighth degree black belt within the next 6 months, along with my son, who will be testing for his fourth degree. So, would love to have you as a guest. Would be very honored to have you there. So, I will definitely keep in touch. And thank you, Ron Oatman. Thanks for watching. I'm glad that you enjoyed listening. Who knows? Maybe in the future we could do a part two. I've had several guests where, a part two is definitely needed. And I know that we didn't get to half of the stories and half of the stuff that we could have talked
Oh,
today, about today. But again, thank you so much for being on the show. We'll be in touch and enjoy your week.
please do. We'll meet up and have coffee one day.
That sounds great. Sounds wonderful. All right, guys. Well, thank you all for watching today, and look forward to my next interview on next Monday. Please check in on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and anywhere else you can find me. We'll be coming back with another Master Motivation guest very soon. Make it a great week, guys. Take care. Sensei Peoples, really appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Take care.
Have a nice day.
You too.
All right. I don't know how to